Hey everybody, Tom Sorsey here talking about another Storm bowling ball, the Storm Sure-Lock today. I know I've heard some of you really wanted me to get to this, so let's take a look at it. New cover stock, GI 17 solid, Game Improvement 2017. Rad-X core, which you'll recognize from the original lock, which I love. RG numbers 248, 054, 247, 055, pretty similar between 15 and 16. I really want to focus on some of the differences between symmetrical and asymmetrical balls today, so I'm going to kind of skip past this and go right to mine. Here is mine. It's a 60 by 4.5 by 30 layout. What that means is that the angle from the positive axis point to the mass bias through the pin is 60 degrees. 4.5 inches from the pin to the positive axis point, and the angle from the VAL is 30. I don't want to get too technical in that. What's important is that it's a relatively quick response layout. Firstly, you will notice that it does not have an extra hole and that the CG is right up under the fingers. I drilled the fingers super deep to be able to do that without putting a hole in it. So if you have any questions about that, that's why that's there. One more thing I wanted to mention, I said it was a quick response layout. However, it's important to note that cover stock is far and away the most important determining factor in a bowling ball's response time. So, you can put a quick response layout on a slower ball. You can put a slow response layout on a quicker ball, but essentially there's a range of response times that you can get depending on the drilling that you put on a slower response cover stock, for example. You cannot make a slow ball quick. You cannot make a quick ball slow. For example, I can't make a Sure-Lock a no rules pearl, and I can't make a no rules pearl a Sure-Lock, but I can move them slightly in the direction of that. So I can get more into that if anybody wants, but I want to get right to throwing some shots here so you can take a look at it. So what do we know about these strong cover stocks, these cover stocks that create a lot of friction? Generally speaking, they are slower response balls. These balls that create a lot of friction have these smooth transitions. It's just a thing that happens. It's very hard to make a strong ball also quick because it's hard for it to conserve energy with how strong the cover stock is. So you'll see me throwing a lot of shots here, very smooth off of the spot, which is exactly what we would expect. I would say it is stronger, it creates more friction than the original lock, and I would say that it is slightly slower response than the original lock as well. You can see here, very smooth when it sees the friction. We're bowling on the Tower of Pisa again. It's fresh. So this is the first few shots that I've been throwing. So you would expect that a slow response ball would be a good matchup on this, and it looks pretty good. So the ball that I compared it to was the Phase 2. And I chose the Phase 2 because it is symmetric, unlike this Sure-Lock that is asymmetric. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference of them. And I also want to talk a little bit about comparing these higher friction, slow response bowling balls. So let's just see what we see, and we can kind of go from there. One thing that you'll notice is that the Phase 2 creates less friction than the Sure-Lock. It's fairly obvious from looking at the shots. It's fairly obvious when throwing it. The Sure-Lock, I would say, is arguably the strongest ball that Storm has in the line right now. Creates the most friction. You'll see that they're both still smooth, but it's just not generating the same amount of friction as the Sure-Lock. So let's talk about asymmetrical versus symmetrical. So generally speaking, asymmetrical balls tend to be quicker response. Asymmetrical balls tend to be more sensitive to friction. If you see friction in the front, it's harder to get them through that friction in the front, versus this Phase 2, say, might be able to push through that early friction a little better, even though they're both strong balls. To blanket statement that they're all quicker response than symmetrical balls would not be accurate to say. However, like I said, the number one determining factor is the cover stock. So the way to look at it is if I had two balls with the exact same cover stock, one with an asymmetrical core and one with a symmetrical core, we could expect the asymmetrical ball to be quicker than the symmetrical ball. Now, if you're going to say which of these two do I think is quicker, I'm not sure I can give you an answer to that right now, and it's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, these very strong, high friction balls, it's very difficult to get a read on them when they're fresh and out of the box. A lot of people have the ball that they buy, it's brand new, and they see the reaction that it gives them, and they bowl 10, 20, 30, 50 games, and they see that the reaction has changed, and that it's not as strong and it's not as quick anymore, and they do something like get it rejuvenated and want to get the oil sucked out of it. And I'm kind of against that because bowling balls change the most between when you put holes in it and about 50 games. I mean, there's differences obviously, but roughly in that first 50 games, they change a lot, right? Every ball, especially these ones with the very, very porous cover stocks, okay? After 50 games and forward, they still change, but it's not anywhere near as significant a change as the first 50 games. If you rejuvenate a ball and you want to soak the oil or take the oil out of it, okay, you can't get it back to where it was game one. But even if you could, I don't see why you'd want to, because you would just be dealing with the ball changing still again. You're in that 50 games where the ball keeps changing. For me, I want to see what the ball does when we get some oil into it, so I can see the consistent reaction that I'm going to see down the road. That's how I determine when a ball makes it in my core arsenal. It takes a lot of games for me to like a ball enough, not really like, it takes a lot of games for me to know a ball enough, to know where it fits and where it belongs, to be able to find the right spot for it and trust it enough to put it in my core arsenal. So comparing the Surelock and the Phase 2, they're both high friction bowling balls, and I would say the Surelock is definitely higher friction. Their response time is both slow. Are they different? Probably a little bit, but it's a little hard to tell at this point because I have this Surelock with very, very few games, not just a handful. And really my Phase 2 has more, but not significantly more games. So it's difficult to say exactly where they go. What's important is that high friction, slow response. We know the area that it belongs. And the more games you get on a ball, it will begin to define itself to you for the scenarios where it's best used for, and then you can begin to kind of fine-tune where it belongs. But as long as we know basically high friction, slow response, we know a few things. We know we're going to use more closed angles. We know we're going to use it on the fresh. We know we're going to use it when there's a lot of oil in the lane. And those are the things that are important. Deciding which higher friction, slow response ball we go to, we have to use our eyes when we're out there, on the battlefield bowling. But we know where these balls belong. So the Surelock, high friction, slow response time. We know when we're going to be using it. Early on in blocks, using more closed angles, when there's a higher volume of oil. That's the most important thing to know. Deciding which high friction, slow response ball is a matter of what balls you feel most comfortable throwing, what you've had success with in the past, and a number of other things. But just recognizing where it belongs is what's important. Hopefully, what I said about the differences between the asymmetrical and symmetrical balls will help you, and the differences between these two balls or brand new balls and balls that have games on them will help you too. I certainly love talking about all that stuff, so if you have any questions, let me know. As usual, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/TMSourcy. Find me on Twitter @TomSourcy, youtube.com/TomSourcy. Coming up soon, there's a whole slew of new Roto-Grip balls coming out. Hopefully I will get my hands on enough of them that I can make some videos for you. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.